The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Wall Street Journal revealed today that mere weeks before Hamas terrorists unleashed the worst attack on Jews since the Holocaust, they went to Iran to take training and direction from the terrorist group, the IRGC. Strangely, given that this group is probably the most dangerous terrorist outfit on earth, it is perfectly legal to raise money for it, to organize and recruit for it right here in Canada. Will the Prime Minister ban the IRGC today?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
During the previous Conservative government's attacks and rhetoric against Iran, including the closing of the embassy, they never moved forward on banning the IRGC and declaring it a terrorist organization. We know there is a rigorous process to do that, and we are pursuing and looking at all options around that. What we did do, Mr. Speaker, is use never before used or rarely before used measures in the immigration department that were used in case of war crimes in Rwanda and elsewhere to ban for life senior members of the IRGC from ever being able to come and find solace in Canada. That is a strong measure, and we're always open to doing more.
L'honorable chef de l'opposition.
The same people he claims are banned are present in Canada today. They are terrorizing Persian Canadians. Many Jews feel that their safety is at risk, knowing that there are people with links to the world's most dangerous and anti-Semitic terrorist organization legally operating on the ground here in Canada. The Prime Minister has the legal authority embedded in law today with a stroke of a pen to criminalize the IRGC. Will he do it? Yes or no?
Le très honorable Premier Ministre.
Mr. Speaker, if I start correcting the Honourable Leader of the Opposition on the facts, we'll be here all day. The fact of the matter is the listing of an organization as a terrorist organization is actually a meticulous process led by intelligence and security agencies and carefully calibrated to do no harm to Canadians or Canadian military members serving overseas. We will continue to take all measures to hold the murderous regime in Iran to account. We will continue to stand with the community. We will stand against anyone who's attempting to harm or intimidate Canadians on Canadian soil, and we are always open to doing more, Mr. Speaker. That is what we are continuing to work on.
Hear, hear.
Avant que je passe au chef de l'opposition.
Before I move on to the Leader of the Opposition, I wish to remind the member for South Shore St. Margaret's to leave the floor to those who have the floor during question period.
Opposition.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Minister has had plenty of time to go through that meticulous process. Under the anti-terror law adapted in the aftermath of 9/11, the Public Safety Minister, which reports to the Prime Minister, has the ability to put groups on the list. There are dozens that have already been added, but the most dangerous terrorist group of all, the IRGC, can still legally fundraise, coordinate, organize, and propagate its message here on Canadian soil at great risk to Canadian Jews and Persians. Will the Prime Minister put his intransigence and stubbornness aside and protect Canadians for once and ban the IRGC?
Le très honorable Premier Ministre.
Mr. Speaker, we have taken and will continue to take significant actions to hold the murderous regime in Tehran to account. We continue to recognize them as supporters of terrorism around the world. We continue to take more tools in terms of doing that, and all options, as always, are on the table. We need to make sure we're doing it in a way that protects Canadians, including Canadians of Iranian descent, but also military members in our CAF serving around the world. We will continue to do the right things to keep all Canadians safe and hold the Iranian regime to account.
Hear, hear.
Mr. Speaker, the Americans banned the IRGC in 2019. They reaffirmed, President Biden reaffirmed that decision just last year. The Liberal caucus even voted in this House in favor of banning the IRGC, but the Prime Minister blocked that from happening. He has the legal authority to do it. This is the world's most dangerous terrorist group. They helped orchestrate the hideous attacks on the people of Israel just weeks ago. Will he finally do the right thing and ban the IRGC? Yes or no?
Le très honorable Premier ministre.
Mr. Speaker, as the Leader of the Opposition should know, the Americans have a very different regime from us when it comes to banning various organizations. But we continue to have all options on the table. As we've said, we continue to do everything necessary to hold this murderous Iranian regime to account, and we will continue to move forward in measures to do just that.
L'honorable chef de l'opposition.
Actually, the regime is really not that different when it comes to listing. We both have the power of the executive branch to identify terrorist groups and put them on a list of banned entities, banning them from raising money, recruiting, coordinating, and arranging attacks on other people around the world. That power exists in Canada. And in fact, because the Prime Minister has not been willing to exercise that power using his executive authority, Conservatives have a helpful private members bill that would do it for him. Will he adopt the Conservative private members bill to ban the IRGC, yes or no?
Le très honorable Premier ministre.
Mr. Speaker, we'll continue to do everything we can to hold the Iranian regime accountable for its actions. Our actions have included having sanctioned hundreds, over 368 in fact, of Iranian individuals and entities, including the IRGC Quds Force. And we're listing the regime under the most powerful provision of the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act. We're, of course, working on a way to recognize the regime to continue to be what it is, which is spreading a regime that spreads terror, and we're working to find a way that doesn't unfairly affect those who may have an association with the IRGC through no choice of their own or puts at risk members of the Canadian Armed Forces.
L'honorable chef de l'opposition.
Mr. Speaker, there are plenty of ways to protect people who are unintentionally forced to participate in terrorist groups. That's what we do with all the listed banned terrorist entities that are already on the list. So those tools already exist. The Prime Minister has had 8 years. 8 years. He is not worth the cost. He is not worth the risk to our safety. Will he adopt the common sense Conservative proposal to criminalize the IRGC terrorist group today?
Yeah. Le très honorable Premier ministre.
Mr. Speaker, no one in this House disagrees that the Iranian regime is murderous, is a sponsor of terror, is bloodthirsty against people around the world and indeed against its own citizens. I remember well having held in my arms families of the victims of PS 752, brokenhearted because of what this murderous regime is capable of doing against its own citizens, let alone against citizens around the world. That is why we've continued to pursue every available means to hold the Iranian regime to account, to support people fighting for freedom in their country, to support Iranian Canadians, and we will continue to do just that.
Before I move on to the member for Davenport, I remind the member
from Cumberland Colchester to please allow the question to be answered and the person who has the floor to answer that question without interruption. Alas, we've come to the end of question period. I see the honourable member from Edmonton, Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan, rising on a point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In light of the persuasive arguments raised by the Leader of Canada's Conservatives, I hope you will find unanimous consent for the following motion. That notwithstanding any standing order or usual practice of the House, Bill C-350, the Combating Torture and Terrorism Act, be deemed read a second time and referred to the Standing Committee on Foreign Affairs.
Absolutely. All those opposed to the honourable members moving the motion will please say nay. I regret that there is not unanimous consent for this. I see the honourable member from Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan, rising on another point of order.
Mr. Chair, is it possible to identify the Liberal members who said nay in response to the...
The honourable member is an experienced member of the House. You know that is not a point of order.